Python can accept user input through a command called input. Actually, it's a function called input. Now, one thing to keep in mind when using the function called input is it can take a string as like a sentence or a question. You can store this as a variable, for instance, but the biggest thing to remember is that no matter what someone answers here, it will always come back as a string. So let's do a few examples here. Let's say your name is equal to, and let's say it's going to be input, what is your name? And so, okay, it says here, what is your name? You can see that the cell is still running. It's got a little asterisk beside it. My name is Caleb. Okay, it looks like it did nothing, but your name is now assigned to Caleb. And if we run type on your name, it's going to come back as a string, as expected. Now, what if I said age? What is your age? And this also needs an input function. Not a method, it's a function because it starts with a name and then parentheses, and it doesn't have something attached to it like that. So this is a function. And this is going to ask, what is your age? Now my age is going to be 30. Cool. So I can now enter age. It says 30. But if I type age, it still comes back as a string. Now, why is this important? Is because down the road and not too far from now, we're eventually going to need to be able to ask Python a question. We need to say, hey, is the age higher than 18 or greater than or equal to 18? And so one thing to keep in mind here, again, is just because everything comes back as a string, it's going to be a little bit harder to compare things. So if you wanted to make sure that this was a certain number, well, you could technically ask if this was a certain number, but what if someone lied about their age, right? So let's rerun this example. And let's say age is equal to, what is your age? We're going to rerun this. And I'm going to type in the word 30 because I'm going to be weird about it instead of putting a number. I run this, it says 30, type age, still a string. But now in Python, what if I said, hey, Python, I need to know if someone is 18 or older. I could say if age is greater than or equal to 18, well, this is already a number. Strings tend to have quotations around them or apostrophes around them, and numbers do not. So if the age is greater than or equal to 18, print, you can vote. So a very boring example, but nonetheless a good one here. And look at that, we're running into an issue. Now we'll get into what an if statement is a little bit down the road because we're going to be working with a lot of them. But Python gave us this thing called a type error. And it said, greater than or equal to is not supported between instances of a string and an integer. And that's because it thinks this one here is a string. And sure enough, it is. It is the word 30. And so it's sort of like comparing a word to a number. It just doesn't work out mathematically, and a program cannot understand that. It's not smart enough to say, oh, this is the word 30, and what it actually means is 30. It does not understand that whatsoever. And so it cannot make this comparison and will error out on you. Now, I'm going to get rid of this because you don't need to keep that in your memory bank for now. We'll talk about those a little bit later. What I would like you to do for funsies is in your command line or in a Jupyter notebook, create a variable, doesn't really matter what it's named, is equal to input, and then ask a question. Hit enter, and it's going to ask you for an answer. Then answer it, and then just print out whatever your variable is. I want you to actually execute this input function, and then print out what the answer is. Give that a shot, and when you are done, let's head on over to that next lesson.